So, hello and welcome back to Symbiotic Futures interview series with Marjolein. Last time we talked about how you talked about basically the importance of being in a community and how moving from the city to the community is your way of kind of practicing collaborations in a very local space. So, working with kids and artists. But now I want to ask you if a more difficult question. So, if someone disagreed with your values or vision, how might you approach them, and what would you say to encourage a dialogue and kind of convince them maybe that what you're saying is important?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's a hard question as well. And I think I think there has to be like I don't want to convince anyone because I'm not sure that my way of viewing is like the best way. I mean, it is for me, but I could never like decide if that would be for someone else. And then at the same time, what I really want is for people to open up and hold space for different ways of viewing the world, both through someone else's lived experience and someone else's background and what they experience, and also for other species. Like we can never completely understand another human being, let alone another animal. And the thing is, if I find myself in conversation or in the vicinity of someone um, who has like values that are like completely opposed to mine. Like
Yeah.
I have been recently been talking to people who like oppose like basic human rights for others, for example, or who do not who want to like strip groups of people from their rights, or think that because of economy, all things are valid steps to take. And
Hmm.
then I find it really hard to be in that dialogue because there has to be like some sort of a shared, like you don't have to have the same values to have a good conversation, of course. But if they're so opposed and so far away, and also if that person is not out to have a conversation, but rather to prove a point or
Yeah.
to win an argument, I um, I don't think there is any good way to approach that in which there is something coming out of that conversation other than you both even sticking your heels into the ground even more.
Hmm.
So, um, like, I think we need some sort of empathy and humanity and curiosity at least to have a conversation. And I mean, if I'm in that situation, either um, I just say what I think, which is never a good way to come anywhere, like to change anyone's mind. But I do ask a lot of questions.
Hmm.
Like if someone says something and that makes me go like, okay, what what did you just say? I just ask questions like, where does this idea come from, or why do you think that, or what do you think would happen if, or how do you see this development going further, and how about? So I try to, by asking questions, make them think about their own like ideas,
Yeah.
and then maybe someone thinks something later or after that will help them change their minds.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, um, we need to have some sort of idea or
Hmm.
some sort of shared values,
Yeah.
and then you can have a conversation and point people towards things
Yeah.
that are in the world that they can
Hmm.
change their mind about.
Yeah, I mean, if there's no curiosity and if it's about dominating a conversation, it's not really a dialogue.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. And if there's one major thing, one major social norm
Mm.
practice that could better align with ecological values,
Hmm.
uh, what would that be to you and why?
So I think I think this is something that I practice. I mean, this is something we practice with our kids as well. Like the idea that we are all in relationship with each other. That's how we live, even if we are not in direct relationship with the food we eat. Right? It's by distance, But there are all of these relations, the air we breathe, the food we eat, the clothes we wear. It's all like created by some tiny organism in the ocean or by people in a faraway country under hard circumstances, or insects that are struggling in our cities that are, you know, pollinating our food. So I think one thing I change is that this, I mean, it's part biology, but it's also a part of everything, that it's not a separate like subject being taught in school.
Hmm.
But I think this idea that we're all like reliant on each other, dependent on each other, and the environment that we live in, and how that relationship is formed, that should be taught to kids like from a young age,
Yeah.
and on a really deep level. And I think on every level of education, that it's something included into like, how do you fit into this? I
Hmm.
remember as a biologist, we had these ethics courses, and you were invited to reflect on biology and things like gene editing. But it was always at a distance. Like, it's always about, oh yeah, this problem and these ideas, and okay, this is my opinion. But it was never about how does it make you feel,
Hmm.
and why do you make the choices that you make. Why do you make those choices, and how do you relate to your topic, and what's your personal gain?
Hmm.
And I think these are important questions, because sometimes we think we're a work persona, and then at home we are the person we truly are. But I mean, we're the same person always and everywhere. And to be aware of how you move through the world and what kind of, you know, relationships you're bringing with you, um, that's something that I think should be taught to kids from a young age.
Yeah. So from a something in the educational system.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like we have a garden. I'm looking outside now. It's dark. We have a garden here. It's one of the reasons we moved. And for me, that's like it's like an outdoor classroom for my kids. They go to school 5 days a week, and it's a wonderful school. And at the same time, I want to teach them something extra about like who's living in that garden, and that this garden we have nettle growing, for example. You know, the prickly plant, because it's former farmers' ground. And a nettle, it's like annoying. It grows over our like more beautiful plants, and they prickle. But like, animals need it to survive. They take the nitrogen out of the ground, which we have so much of here in the south, and it's actually purifying the grounds. And I explained it to my kids. And it's not that the plants are not annoying anymore, but they understand they have a role. Like my kids, one of the things I want to teach them is that even that annoying mosquito, or that bee that you might be afraid of, or spiders that are crawling, they all have like they all do something in that whole ecosystem. And I
Hmm.
think you don't need a big garden or living in a nature place. You can live in a town or a city, and know these things, because I mean, life creeps through the cracks even
Yeah.
of your like 5-story high apartment, and it's there, and it's having a relationship with you, whether you know it or not.
Hmm. And what do you think is like the thing that's hindering people from seeing this kind of perspective from the you know the plant or the
Mhm.
spider in your house?
I think this is speculating, of course, but I think we are taught so cerebral from a young age. Like, we learn things with our heads,
Hmm.
and um, we we don't involve our hearts in it. Like, more and more schools are experimenting with, of course, with like kids' own interests and following their own interests a little bit, which is good. But still, I think that most learning takes place like completely devoid of using your body. Like, when you do math or when you learn a language, there's no like other senses involved. Like, it's just you and your paper or your screen.
Hmm.
So to have it step from a life where you are supposed to be rational, and where that's really or like being rational is a compliment, being emotional is an insult, right?
Yeah.
And to have that step to build a relationship with a spider or the plant in your garden, it's, for many people, it's like as if you're jumping off a cliff.
Hmm.
So there's so much, and even for, because this sort of for some people it's very spiritual. People often approach me and they say, "Oh yeah, you do something spiritual," and it's so funny to me, because although there's a spiritual component, to me it's very material, because it's about things and life that I can see and touch, and it's
Yeah.
there. So um, it's this big bridge to gap. And I don't have like a clear cut answer to, okay, this is how we're going to
Yeah, of
bridge
course.
that gap. But
Yeah,
curiosity and stories for me was my way. So
yeah,
I hope that this will also be an entry point for some people that I will meet or have met
yeah,
in the past.
yeah. That's nice.
Mm.
And so, looking at the current state of the world and the planet, a lot of things happening, politically, ecologically. What gives you hope for a symbiotic future?
Yeah, so I used to start my lectures with I used to be a kind of very skeptic of the human race as a student when I was 18 years old, and I always thought, oh, humans just need to vanish from the planet and then everything will be fine. So I wasn't hopeful
Mhm.
at all. But I have two kids now, so like even if I sometimes feel like it, I cannot afford to be hopeless because why would I have brought two kids into this world? So it's like with having these kids, it sort of obliges me to find things to be hopeful for and to have an idea or a vision for this future that could be a reality. So for me, again, it keeps coming back, but the garden is my sort of reflection, mirror, and goal, I guess, for the world. Like when we moved in here, it was grass and concrete, like a desert, a green and stone desert. And we took a lot of it out and we planted some indigenous, like just like this big shrubs and plants and trees. And a lot of stuff were given to us, like from everywhere, like lavender or whatever, not things that were like indigenous to the Netherlands. So we have like a garden that's like a big mess of all of these different things, and we just let it grow for 3 years. And if you look at it now, it's like unrecognizable. There's so many birds and worms in the ground. It was like completely, I mean, it wasn't dead, but it was very like not very much alive. And I didn't study it. I know there's people who rewilded the garden and they measured like species before and after, and it's so impressive. But I looking outside, I see the change in just a couple of years on just a, I mean, it's a big garden, but it's still like just a small piece
Yeah,
of land. So this teaches me that life is resilient. Like, and we are life. We are part of life. And I don't know how things will move forward, but I do think that we need to have these hopeful stories and people who are hopeful, and that we, even when the world, I mean, we don't know how it goes, and it scares me to be honest, all of these things. But having community here and actively building it and making it like more close, and I mean, I'm going to try and teach myself to grow some plants, not because I have the dream of becoming self-sufficient, but I think these skills are important, and it also, you know, it necessitates me to sort of call someone I vaguely know, like, oh, can you tell me something about growing maize? So you need each other again.
hmm,
And this is where I have my hope very local, because I think the more like geopolitical threats there are, the less I feel able to do anything about it. And the
hmm,
more I feel like I have to focus my energy and attention and work towards the things I can actually control, which is my kids, the people in my town,
hmm.
um, and the stories that I choose to tell.
Yeah. And your world is also part of the larger world. So, yeah,
Yeah, I think
super.
if more, or not if more people do it, I mean, for sure, but I think everyone who's doing these things, and most certainly the people who you never hear about, like the people caring for their neighbors or their parents who are sick, or working at a food bank, and I mean all of these like invisible people who are holding it together. I think this is where it really matters, and not
Yeah.
the people you hear, or even maybe me when I give a keynote about something is just one part. But I think the actual work of having this community is with these people. And I think if you can expand like the circle of who you care about just a little bit, if we can all do that just a little bit, that will make a big difference.
Hmm. And lastly, do you think having kids made you feel like it's a responsibility for you as a human being to build a better world?
Mm, Let me think a bit. I think I always felt that responsibility. Um, I didn't always want to have kids. It was something that just later in life I realized it was something I wanted. But for a long time I thought, I don't know if the world's like good enough to have kids, if it's something I would be good at and want to do.
Yeah,
So I mean,
common
yeah, making
a
that
common
decision.
idea that people
Yeah,
have these days.
yeah. And I think the moment I made the decision to want to try and have kids is when I um, thought, okay, I have to like make sure that what's the word? Because I don't know if I can make the world better, but I do want to imprint on my kids that these are ways to do it, ways to view it, and try to live that as well. I mean, I can tell them and teach them all I want, but if I don't live it myself,
Yeah.
um, it's no use. And I think I had like every parent, you have a lot of ideals of what you want to do in terms of like being a sustainable parent, for example. And it's so hard in this society to uphold these values. So I think if anything, it taught me also to be mild and to see the things I can do and always try to do better. And I want to teach my kids that because there's this idea sometimes of being perfect in terms of like how sustainable you are or what you do, and sometimes that leads to a lot of like critical thinking about the people who are doing something or doing their best. And
Yeah.
I think that we need all of these different things and different ideas to build a world together.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your vision of the future and how your personal story as well, and how you live your life and how you try to act and live your method and philosophy. So yes, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Venya.